Hi everyone, I'm Junyi, majoring in data science.
And I'm Karen Nielsen, and I'm majoring in philosophy.
We are both rising seniors from Duke Kunshan University.
And we got to join the Project Vox team this summer.
This summer, we mainly focused on constructing and visualizing the philosopher networks, especially with a highlight on marginalized and forgotten women philosophers.
How might you find these philosophers if they're marginalized and forgotten? Well, take a look at Project Vox's front-facing website, and you can find out their mission too.
We work together because we share the same mission. We want to expand and challenge the traditional philosophical canon. Especially, we want to feature philosophers unjustly ignored and excluded from the mainstream narratives.
You can go right to that website and look at philosophers right now. All of these names that you see on the screen, there has been intensive research done on them, and these are all at your fingertips for you to see. However, they're still excluded from the canon. And what Junyi and I were working towards is, well, if you go there, you're going to see pages with lots of text. And how can we make that more interactive? What can we do to visualize these women's lives, to give them back their stories?
However, it is not the whole story. We also look at a bigger picture. Before I came in this project, I've already made a Wikipedia influence network of philosophers with JavaScript. So you can see here, each node is a philosopher who are listed in Wikipedia, and each link is the philosopher's influence on their peers. Now let's take a look at it. Here is the fancy network, a lot of nodes. However, if we highlight women philosophers, we can only see very small nodes and they're very much marginalized. Why is that? We started with the question, who are considered as philosophers? List of philosophers from Wikipedia. We can see the main philosopher list. It is listed by name. And there's another woman philosopher list. I assumed that women philosophers must all of them be included in the main list because women philosophers are philosophers. However, is that really the case? There's an amazing and insane thing. We actually found that there are 261 women philosophers listed. However, only 49 of them are included in the main list. So, women philosophers are not philosophers? Then, I merged the two lists. Now, if we highlight women philosophers, we see much more of them. They're isolated.
And when Junyi showed me this network, I was amazed because, guys, did you know that she said she had done this entirely before we even started working together, which is ridiculously cool. And you can see in those graphics that the women are not highlighted, maybe not be there. And I went, can you look up Emily du Châtelet? Because I learned about her in one of the classes I took this year, and I went, I wonder if she's there.
So that we search Emily du Châtelet in our network. Yeah, we found her. Wait, there's something wrong. Why she's only connected to one philosopher? Let we check it out. Okay, we go to her Wikipedia page and say, well, she is connected with 3 philosophers. Then we go to Leibniz page. The influence and influenced by. Here is the reason. So, we cannot find Emily du Châtelet here, which means if the user, or to say the general public, start with men philosophers page, they can never reach these women philosophers because there is no link. However, if you go to the women philosophers page, you will find all these men philosophers, how they influenced her. With this idea, I continue to develop this network. Well, here is a dataset. I scrolled the data from Wikipedia and organized them into this JSON file. So we can see that Aimé de Chatelet is on the left and Leibniz is on the right. What I did is try to make sure that if there's a record A influences B, there must be another record B is influenced by A. So after updating this network, we can see Aimé de Chatelet here in the influence list of Leibniz. Now let me check what will happen in the network. Oh, here we are. We see a much larger and much more connected network. And these women philosophers seems to be larger and they're much more waved into this huge network. Oh, we found Aimé de Chatelet here. And now she is connected with 3 philosophers.
What can we do with visualizations like this? Well, I think that the Wikipedia visualization shows us how marginalized women are in the networks. Because yes, Junyi was able to do amazing work and show that Aimé de Chatelet can have 3 connections. But before anyone goes out there saying that she only had 3 connections, you should definitely go read the Project Vox page about her, because there's way more to her life. And so we wanted to see Wikipedia. That's what you get when you Google it. What can we do by focusing on a specific person and using the research that people in Project Vox have already done and restore and reconnect their narratives? And how does that juxtapose to the wiki network that we've done? So what I did is go poke Junyi again. And I went, you know who should have a ton of connections? Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia, for many reasons. But one of them, and you're going to have to bear with me here through some philosophical jargon, is her connection with Descartes. And have you guys heard the thing of like, I think therefore I am? I was recently told it's part of a Billie Eilish song. Unknown to me, maybe you guys are cooler than I am, but the I think therefore I am, or the statue with the guy on his hand, have any of you guys heard of the mind-body divide? Can we get any nods on the black screens of your faces on this Zoom? Well, if you've ever heard of the mind-body divide or even seen The Matrix, that ties back to Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia. It's actually in a letter to Descartes that Princess Elizabeth wrote that is where that idea of it being a divide comes from. And so I went, she should have a ton of connections. So let's see where she is in the network.
Of course. Okay, so we do the search again. Elizabeth of Bohemia. Wait, she is isolated. There is no connection between her and any other philosophers.
Which is just mind-boggling, guys. And you'll see why in a bit. So what we thought is, we have this big Wikipedia visualization that Junyi's worked on a ton. All we need to do is create a visualization of Princess Elizabeth, right? It should be simple, we just, put in who she's connected to. But no, it's not that simple. It turns out visualizations are based a lot in databases, and that we needed to work together to develop a workflow and a method that would work for Junyi and I and for Project Vox team members in the future.
Here is our design pipeline. So we first collect the data. We construct the database, which will contain intellectual connections we draw. And then we do the visualization design to see how to represent the information. And finally, we will build visualizations. So it is actually not only a technical problem, it contains 3 parts, and we need to work through it. Well, I'm getting into some technical details, but it's very simple. So first of all, we design a spreadsheet to input data about the relationships between philosophers. And I will show you how user-friendly and beautiful the spreadsheet is. And then I use Python to convert the spreadsheet information into JSON file, then input into a graph database. And then we can build visualizations and see a lot of networks to get insights. We can also work in another way because we want our project to be sustainable, be useful to the future researchers who will join our team. So I also write a script to transform JSON files, or say the graph database files, back into spreadsheet, so we can keep updating the data.
Step one is the data collection. And we're really lucky because, as we've mentioned, we are a part of Project Vox, and Project Vox has done tons of amazing research already. And so we went, okay, we want to see the Princess Elizabeth and Descartes correspondence. And they had a document that showed, from to location and the dates. However, we found this wasn't in a way that was readable by computer. And so we had to sit down, and, this actually was us sitting around with a letter and a piece of paper at first, and go, how can we create something that is understandable to humans and to computers? And that's how we came up with this template. And then, of course, we go and we start transforming this template, right? Well, it's not actually that smooth, guys. It turns out that, there is always bias in data. There's always going to be something missing. You might have caught on that previous slide that there's reformatted date because, there's tons of things that happen, in how we represent data that are different across disciplines. And we had to figure out, okay, well, if we only know the month or the year, decade, maybe even century, what do we do? How do we show that missing data? And beyond that, we're going through this research that was done by humans, and we go, what if this is a mistake? What if that is a mistake? And we have to realize at a certain point, we have to trust the research that people have done. And we have to be very careful about what data are we choosing to trust. Because no matter what we choose to trust, data itself is fallible. We cannot create a perfect visualization. And so we have to create a visualization that helps show these networks of these women to the best of our ability. And that takes a lot of discussions about what to keep, what to show. We started realizing that, the letters, you might have seen their Shapiro index if you were, staring at the computer really closely. But we started using indexes from the correspondence in the philosophical text we were looking at because we wanted to make sure we actually represented philosophical ideas in these. And we really wanted to make sure that sustainability was at the center of this. And so it was, okay, well, what worked for me as someone who's maybe more coming from a philosophy and less computer science background, but also what works for Junyi and needing to be able to use this in a network. And all of these things were really hard questions that we keep coming back to, and we expect future team members to also keep coming back to. Okay, so finally, after all of that discussion and all of that time, I go, okay, Junyi, here's a spreadsheet. And she goes, oh, wait, we still have to standardize that. And she takes that spreadsheet and you put it into a CSV file. And that's just the start of all of these Python scripts that she had to write.
Yes. So after this, we actually want to take out the information, put it in another schema, which is what you see here, and then import it into a graph database. So I designed the schema. For the JSON file, we have name, roles, connections for each philosopher. And for each connection, we have type, label, from to their unique ID. We have source, our own biases. So we put a lot of attention on how to record our bias in a way that the future team members and the general public can see, yes, these are the sources we use, these are the sources we've collected, and this data are what we have input. We also have date and location. This is the JSON file.
And then we arrive at a graph database, and you may be someone who's like, what on earth is a graph database? Like me, who didn't even know what we were going to end up doing. So Junyi, can you talk a little bit about database and why we're using it?
So we use graph database because it is much more flexible than the regular database. Regular database are like the spreadsheet, so you have fixed columns and regularly. And also you cannot store too much information because there are certain limitations on what kind of information you can put in the columns. However, in a graph database, you'll be able to create multiple types of nodes, multiple types of connections. And on the right side is the schema for our current database. We have person, connection, label, location, date. And we're going to import more and more data and keep it updated.
And what does that actually mean? It means by looking at what was just available on Project Vox's website, we went and found, records of who else she communicated with, and we just kept adding them as links and nodes into this graph database. And then I went, hey, Junyi, just show me who she was connected to. And because we're using a flexible database, she was able to query that and come up with this, which just shows you she doesn't have no connections. She has many connections. And so this was going, who did Princess Elizabeth connect with? Well, what happens if we do a different query?
Okay, so we also want to zoom in a little bit into the correspondence itself. We want to see exactly what they're talking about. To work, we'll do the query to extract all the correspondence whose index, or to say the keywords, contain the word body. And here is what you can see. Those brown nodes are connections, basically their correspondence. The blue nodes are the index, or to say the keywords. And in this way, you can see that some letters actually are talking about the same topics.
What you saw there was what we were able to accomplish in these 6 weeks, but it wasn't everything that we were able to do. We also looked at ways of story mapping timelines. We looked at other templates because this was mainly just us looking at correspondence templates, and we thought, there's got to be other ways that these women connected and wrote and met with other people beyond that. Junyi spent a lot of time in this past, last week, of looking at text analysis, taking the text of the correspondence between Princess Elizabeth and Descartes, and as we mentioned, we use the index. Well, what happens if we use the entire text and use, AI algorithms for topic modeling? We also wanted to make sure that we were keeping track of everything. And the other thing we did that really kept us grounded as a group was weekly readings and discussions. And yeah, just a huge shout out to Kelsey and Emily, because we wouldn't have been able to do any of this without them in that room with no airflow, and they just made it a ball and brought so much knowledge.
Yeah. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can directly ask us, or you can check out our blog posts in the future and Project Vox website for more information.